Oh, shoot. Okay. Hi. I don't know if anybody can see and hear me. It looks like we have a slight error on our end. I'm just trying to see if I'm actually showing up here or not. Okay. I think we're good to go. We had a little hiccup on StreamYard's side. Welcome to our live session. As always, as you're coming in here, there's always little technical hiccups. So you can see and hear me okay. Okay, Liz, you can see me, and we got Brad, our savior, telling me the audio and video are good. Yeah, the lighting in here is going to be a little rough today. It's hot in my office today, so I got to keep the curtain shut today. Very sunny day in San Diego. Um, all right. Well, where do we want to start? Where do we want to kick off today? Why don't we go backwards to start, and then we'll dive in. Any questions, comments, where you're visiting from, anything and everything is on the table. As always, we will talk a little bit in our downtime about like why it's being so hard and why it's been so hard to get an interview. But this is a general Q&A session too, so there's no need to apologize, no need to say this isn't relevant. It's all relevant. I'm here to help with anything and everything that anybody needs. So let's start by going backwards for just a moment. So when we go backwards, let's just talk about yesterday's video. And so in yesterday's video, I did a video on taking an unpopular stance or voicing an unpopular opinion at work. This is a very, very common behavioral question that you'll get at any company. It's really just taking a stance and being able to talk about that stance with positive intent is really important. Usually, when we voice a strong and sometimes unpopular opinion, we do it because we believe it's best for the organization, best for our team, best for the group, whatever it might be. So, really, really important video. And I kind of walk through the steps of how to answer that type of behavioral question with positive intent. So, if you haven't had a chance to check out that video, absolutely check it out. Let's just dive in, and I'm going to prompt on my services here for just a moment, and then we'll dive in again. Any questions, any thoughts, where you're visiting from, it's all good. So if this is your first time here, I've put in the banner down below. I think everybody knows I'll always do a coupon code for my AI tool and interview mastery course the day of my live. So 20% off the AI tool or interview mastery course if you use the coupon or promo code interviews. Our modular feedback is out on the AI tool. That means we're breaking answers into sections. There's literally no other tool on the market that's doing that. And we know that that's a game changer. Look, you might just need to work on your situation and task in the STAR method, or you might just need to work on your assumptions using the CFAST method. And so we've broken it down that way to help you. And of course, about a month ago now, we entered the ideal answer as well. And people are really liking that feature too. So I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation, which again, great bang for your buck, and then one-on-one strategy sessions. That's resume, LinkedIn review, etc. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, new original content every Monday, and I'm still trying to push some additional shorts. Just for anybody who's on here, I will be taking next Tuesday off, and then I'll be back the Tuesday right after Labor Day. What else do we want to talk about? All right. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. And if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. Let's dive in. And again, any and all questions are welcome. And thank you so much for being here. All right, Liz, visiting from Sarasota as always. Thanks for being here. Brad, my audio and video savior. Thank you. Bless you, Jeff. Okay, I like that comment. Thanks for being here. Hey, Jeff, I finally got an offer letter from Google. Thanks for all your useful tips. Okay. Awesome. You got the offer letter. Obviously, I just want to take a quick step back. Getting the offer letter is great. I just want to make sure that that offer letter came with some strong negotiations. There's really only one thing you want to hear from Google to know that you have completely negotiated the best offer possible. And all that is we can move the numbers around, but we can't increase the numbers. When you hear that from Google, you've hit the cap. You've done it. You've negotiated the best possible offer. And that is kind of the language they've been using for the last year or two. So they've used that for forever, don't get me wrong, but that's the specific language. Hey, we can move the numbers around. We can move some sign on into equity. We can move this or that, but we cannot go above that number. That means you've negotiated the best possible offer with them. So I'm psyched you got the offer letter. I just want to make sure that offer was fully negotiated. And congrats. Congrats. Yes, amazing news. How long did the process take? Please tell us. Hey, Rocky. Thanks for being here. Took around 3 weeks from my first interview to the final offer. Whoa, nobody takes stake in that. That's really, really fast. But that's awesome. It's awesome to hear that it went that quickly. That's not common. Usually it takes months. It's just a slow process. And so happy to hear that it went really, really quickly for you. 3 weeks that's laser fast for Google. Happy to report I had a good interview with a hiring manager last week. Okay. They provided positive feedback within 24 hours. That was 1 week ago. I've heard nothing since. How should I proceed? I'm always a fan, and this is great, Liz, just for anybody, 5 business days, right? Like when we don't hear back for 5 business days, we poke. It's a very it's a very good timeline. It shows that you know how to give enough space, but you're also going to be a little bit persistent. So finding that nice balance is great. But at 5 business days, we always want to follow up with our point of contact. Always. Um, it's just that's a long period of time, and again, at that point, it starts to become a little bit less. There's like just a little bit less awareness on their end to understand that, like, hey, they got to put themselves in your shoes. So hope that helps. Is there a global recession? Is it a global recession? I don't know. I guess in there are some recessionary indicators, and then every time these indicators pop, we seem to see a little uptick in something, some positivity. I think that overall, just the overall economics and economy have been incredibly resilient. So we see these little downticks, and then we see these upticks, and then we'll see a downtick, and then we'll see an uptick. So I just think globally, like there has been some resiliency to recession. Like we're feeling the pain, we're feeling the cracks. Um, I was telling somebody, well, I mean, this is, again, it's just a lot of this is also just based on inflation and costs and like the value in the US of the dollar. You go to other countries and the value of their currency. I mean, we feel it. I was doing some work Sunday night, and I wanted to go treat myself, and I went out by myself and got like a little small cup of ice cream at a place, and that small cup of ice cream with tip was like $10 US. So like we feel the pain of those costs. That was half that cost just a few years ago. And so I think that just the price of goods, the tight job market, all those things are making it feel like a recession. But again, we've shown globally great resiliency. And I know every market's a little different, but I still try to remain optimistic and positive, and just kind of have that awareness and sense of like, well, what is the future state? And I think the future state's a little trickier just with AI and automation. Hey, Jeff, had my on-site 3 weeks ago. Okay. Was asked for information for my packet 1 week ago. Okay, I think I remember this. When asking for a schedule at time, they said they'd update me. Does that warrant a follow-up email? Um, yeah, I think it's okay, right? Like again, always just going back to what I said with Liz, the 5 business days, there's a little bit of an emotional intelligence there, right? Like at 5 business days, we don't want to leave anybody hanging after 5 business days. That's starting to show a lack of organization, a lack of caring, a lack of empathy. Again, I don't want to be too pokey on these people, but the reality is that that's a long period of time. And so within 5 business days, a follow up, just to check in, a no update, which that's the most important one to me, like recruiters and a no update. It's a warm and fuzzy. Hey, still waiting on feedback, still waiting on a time. I'll get back to you. It's so easy, and it's rarely done, unfortunately. So hang in there, but definitely check in. Yeah, good info. I mean, again, if you get through the entire process from first interview to offer acceptance at Google in 3 weeks, that's not the norm. I would say the full process is much more typical of 2 to 3 months. It's just a slow process. They move slow. it's been broken for a long time. They need to speed it up, but it's just been like that for forever. Question: how do you deal with interviews for companies if not based in my area? But I know friends that work in the Bay Area for positions that were targeted based in New York, London. Example, Spotify. Deal with interviews for companies if you're not based in the area. Well, I think that really starts like, let's take Spotify, relatively big company, right? So you would just talk about your openness to relocate for that job, flexibility to be there for that job, flexibility to show up for the interviews. If you're not in the market and they want to bring you on site, which again is still pretty uncommon right now. There's not a lot of on sites happening, but they should pay for that. You should never have to pay for that on your own. Now, you may have to pay up front and they reimburse you, whatever their system or process is. But that's also a little bit about the messaging you're putting out there on platforms. So, what do I mean by that? In your resume, you want to say open to relocation. On your LinkedIn, you want to say open to relocation. And you also want to be noting and saying those markets as well. Just really, really important. I am going to get off camera in a really weird moment here for about 3 seconds. The AC in my office is not working and it is getting extremely hot. I'm going to just put a fan on. 1 sec. It is a sauna in this office today. The AC is not on, and sorry, I'm overheating. So thank you for that brief break, which is very uncommon in a live session. It's the same for Apple and Sunnyvale and Cupertino versus LA and Seattle. Some of the LA and Seattle positions are more related to my experience, but you're based in the Valley. Okay, and I mean, the reality is like I just look at job opportunities as job opportunities, right? And so like I'm going to go where that best possible job opportunity is, and then with the hope of potentially getting back to where I want to live later on. Now, it's not always that easy. Sometimes we have families, we have mortgages, we're established. I get it. But the ability to pick up and move and go where the position you really desire is, and then work your way back to your desired location. For me, I'm going to move to make it work and then again figure it out later on. Again, I know that that's very that's a statement that's not taking a ton of considerations into play, but just something to be thinking about. I don't know if that even really answered your question. So if you do have follow-up questions, let me know. It's been a month since I had an interview with an HM. Recruiter sporadically said she's waiting for feedback from the HM. I don't have any hope now. Should I still follow up with the recruiter? I would. Yeah, I would follow up with the recruiter and just say, hey, I remain engaged and interested, and I know things get busy, and I just wanted to check in and see how things are progressing. I have a specific format that I like to follow that not everybody agrees with, but my specific format is I'm going to keep following up until I hear back. And why? I want that recruiter or point of contact, if they're not getting back to me, I want them to feel the pain of their error, which is very simply just closing out your candidacy in a positive way where you move forward, or in a negative way where you don't move forward. But I'm going to reach out every 5 business days just to check in, and I'm going to continue to do that. Obviously, if you don't hear back after doing that for a few months, you'll probably stop, but there's no reason why they shouldn't be giving you an update at this point. So I would check in again. AI is eating software. Yeah. One of the pieces that again we'll continue to talk about in these live sessions is what is automation going to do to the future state of jobs? And I talk a lot about this with my friends. I have my mastermind group tonight, so we talk a lot about AI. It's kind of why we started our mastermind group to begin with. And it's just, I would say, based on LinkedIn polls, about 15% of people are worried about AI and automation in regards to the future state of jobs. I think 100% of people should be worried about it. And again, worried is maybe not the right word. It's more preparedness. Like, we want to be incredibly prepared for the future state when jobs start to disappear because of automation. And remember, the reason why I talk so much about this, companies look at their bottom line. They are in business to make money. And the second they can automate people out and do it much cheaper, they're going to do it. It's just a simple business decision. It's not going to be based in having sensitivity or worrying about employees. So I just, for anybody who gets on here, I just want you to have that perspective. How can I enhance my skills with automation? How can I bring automation into what I do and my type of job and my type of work? It will only be gloom and doom if we're not acknowledging it and being aware of it. And people drop off when they hear me talk about AI and automation and the future loss of jobs, but I'm going to continue to do it because if we reflect back 3 years in the future to now, we're going to see that it's going to have a huge impact. I wonder if it's just a lack of human recruiters. Human recruiters are the problem. Okay, so everybody knows I don't get rigid or have very strong, well, I guess I have strong stances, but I 100% believe that everybody who's watching this live session right now would be better served by automated recruitment as opposed to human recruitment. What is the number one complaint? We've already seen it multiple times in this live. It's waiting to hear back. Automate out the recruiter's job and you will never wait to hear back. I can build into a system, no updates every 2 to 3 days. I can follow up with you anytime something happens in the system. You get an automated email. The experience would be way, way better from a recruitment standpoint if there were no humans involved, because I never have to wait on decisions. That automation would trigger all the decisions and let me know. And would it feel warm and fuzzy all the time? No, but it would let me know that I can move on, that I'm going to the next stage of the interview. And so I am 100% a believer that recruiting, especially, that job will not exist in the near future, because it doesn't need to. It could be automated today with a better experience. You can even automate out like coaching. You can automate out the negotiation process. It could all be automated today. Just my opinion. Hey, Jeff, oh, okay. So we answered that one. Same advice. Hey, Jeff, is ageism becoming more prevalent in the market? Asking for a friend. It's not becoming more prevalent. It's always been prevalent. Ageism is one of those things that people don't want to talk about. They want to brush it under the rug, pretend it doesn't exist. It exists. It's absolutely a thing. And so we take that in a positive way. So there's a couple of things we can do to navigate around ageism. Well, how do we do that? Resume and LinkedIn are our number one spot. If you have college dates on your resume or LinkedIn and you're worried about ageism, remove them. If you have earlier career positions that maybe don't make sense or they're not really aligned or you just want to look younger, remove them. Especially, and again, this isn't for every country, but in the US, they cannot ask about age. They can't ask about your career before, what was on your resume. Like, those questions are all off the table. So we can make ourselves look younger. Hey, if you want to put a LinkedIn picture that makes you look younger, use one of those filters. I don't know. There's plenty of apps that have that or do that. We want to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success to overcome ageism, but it's always going to exist. They're just always going to want to hire somebody who's younger for a couple reasons. They think they'll be cheaper from a healthcare perspective. They'll be able to pay them less. It's a thing. And so just having awareness around it and tackling it in a positive manner is going to be important. But anybody who tells you it doesn't exist is they're just candidly not telling you the truth. Hey, Jeff, thanks for your great videos. How high would you recommend anchoring for an L3 AS position in Dublin? Base seems to be 65 to 80K. Yep. What is realistic in terms of RSUs? In L3 in Dublin, um, total RSUs, it's probably not going to eclipse 100K USD. And remember, they always do equity, as you probably know, USD in every market across the globe. So it's probably going to be around 100. Um, if I were anchoring, I'd be anchoring my RSUs somewhere probably in the high ones, something like that. But yeah, the intro numbers are going to be low. And obviously, the base ranges for an L3 laser thin, right? They're not going to move that base that much at an L3 level. Just go big on the equity. Are they going to give you a sign on? Probably not. I would still ask for one, maybe something like 10K or 20K, something small. But just go big. Remember, I see this all the time. I see this all the time with Google. It's like, just go big. You're going to get to the point, which I mentioned earlier on, where they just say, look, this is a best and final. We can move the numbers around, but we can't go any higher. They say we can move the numbers around, but we can't go any higher. That is your indication that you have negotiated the best offer for your level, your role, your location, and that specific scenario, that person at that time. So that's my recommendation. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have more questions. Okay, how to switch to a career in AI without a degree in AI. Currently, senior SDE, 11 years of experience. So, my number one recommendation is there's so much good coursework and course content out there, and like actually quite a bit of it is free. So, I would just start looking at certifications, specific licenses you can get. Degree, it's not as relevant anymore. I mean, you already have a strong technical background, but definitely the future of engineering is prompt engineering, right? So, definitely as much as you can learn there, and then whether it's there's a whole bunch of different directions you can go, but I would say certifications, licenses, and any free content you can consume is going to be valuable. How you pivot to another SDE role focused in AI, that's probably a broader question, but it's definitely something that you want to be looking into, and something that I recommend for anybody. Like, up your AI knowledge and skills as much as you can, as quickly as you can. How to pass resume screening, facing resume screening failures for past few months, not getting calls about submission. Okay. So the number one piece of advice that I give to everybody, that if you've been on these live sessions before, you've seen it or you've heard it a million times, and that's bulleted resume summary. You take your resume, you take the job description, you throw it into GPT, Claude, Gemini, Llama, whatever your preferred Gen AI tool is, and you say, create 5 to 7 summary resume bullets based on the job description and my resume, and have it run those through. The keys with the bulleted resume summary, keep them on one line. If they go on multiple lines, they're not going to read them. And just be specific. SQL as opposed to team player. Python as opposed to hard worker, right? We're going to use very, very specific language there, but we're highlighting skills that the job needs. Now, calls after submission means you're applying. And we all know that it's low hanging fruit to apply to jobs. And we know that this is the least likely path to getting the job. Less than 10% of people get jobs through applications. So there's this 90% of people who are getting jobs who aren't applying. We need to get creative, right? So that's really doing as much networking as you can. I know that that's super uncomfortable for people. People don't like networking, but got to go on LinkedIn, give on LinkedIn, and just hope that it comes back your way. Because just applying in today's landscape, it's not going to work. So the resume summary is one way to hit more applicant tracking systems from a keyword perspective, but ultimately getting more creative in your job search. And of course, I'm speaking to nothing. I don't know anything about how you've gone about your job search, but just applying alone, just as a more general tip, is not the only path. Hi, Jeff. I had my team offsite last week with my new manager. Previous manager got laid off. Based on my intuition, my manager doesn't seem to like me much. Okay. Okay. We had a one to one, and he didn't even look me in the eyes while talking. Not sure what to do. And they even somewhat dismissed my updates and asked someone else about the same thing. He's a nice guy, though. Manage your manager. So the best thing to do in this one-to-one, your next one-to-one, is to go in and say, she said he, so we'll call him Bob. So with Bob, your manager, and again, I'm always making up names, but you just go in and you say, Bob, I want to go backwards first. We haven't really had a chance to get to know each other, and I want to understand, well, what is your leadership style? How can we best work together? How do you like me to share information? How do you like for me to communicate with you? What are your expectations? Go backwards. Because if you figure out, well, this person likes to hear updates via email and they like weekly progress reports and they like X, Y, and Z, we fit in and we follow with their style and we adapt and adjust to their style so that we do better overall. So this is always tough. Somebody not looking you in the eyes, that should never happen at the leadership level. If somebody can't look you in the eyes, they should have never gotten to that job level. Looking people in the eyes is very important. Obviously, also not staring at people, which is something that I used to do, and I had to learn how to look away because I can lock in and forget to look away. So I have the opposite challenge, but yeah, we need to manage our managers. And there's actually I can't remember the name of the book if anybody remembers the name and wants to throw it up there, but there is like a great book on, like, I think it's basically called like Managing Your Manager. Really, really powerful and impactful. And it's something that I did poorly throughout my career. I tried to just be me and force me into managers, right? And so like sometimes it worked, but a lot of times it didn't work. So I hope that helps. In a recent interview, I heard the HM describe the needs that did not match the JD at all. Only location and product match. Skills were different, but I happen to have those that are in fact needed. Okay, Liz, let's keep going. My question is, how the heck do you prep for possible interviews with stakeholders when you don't have a detailed JD that is accurate? All right, Liz, let's double down here. So like, who is your point of contact? Is your point of contact this actual hiring manager, which is again not uncommon at a small to medium sized company sometimes? But is it the hiring manager or is it a recruiter? Misalignment on what needs to be performed in the job, specifically job responsibilities, huge red flag to me. Let's see. Sorry, Liz, let's come in here. 2 points of contact, HM and referring friend. If the job description and what they want aren't aligning, I don't want you to be set up to fail. And one of the biggest things I see is I see exactly what you're talking about, like misalignment between what's on paper and what they're saying. And then there's the secondary misalignment of what's on paper is just like way, way too much and overwhelming. So, yeah, I just want you to be really, really careful because you don't want to go into a job where you're not set up for success. So you may want to just bring it up with the hiring manager and say, hey, like, I'm looking at the job description, I'm seeing these things, but we talked about some of these things. What's most important to you? So we put it back on them, like, what do you care about the most? What's going to be the most impactful for you? You is important. When it's asking you to engage is fine. When it's your fault or you, like the pokey yous are not good. We always want to whenever we're trying to respond to something, we want to put the ownership on us. And you can even do that in this case, Liz. You could say, I'm trying to go through the job description and what we spoke about, and here's what I'm seeing as the primary responsibilities. Are we aligned here? Is this what we think are the most important items for the role? So you can also pull it back and put it on yourself. But that could be a positive view. Like, hey, what are you thinking about these items, for example? Okay, we are at the 30s. We're pretty slow on questions. I'm just going to prompt on my services really quickly. And then for everybody who's here, any and all questions are welcome. And then we'll talk a little bit about I can't even get interviews in our downtime. So today, if you use the coupon or promo code interviews, 20% off of our AI tool and the interview mastery course. I'm still doing one-on-one practice interviews, one-on-one negotiation sessions, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's resume and LinkedIn reviews. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, new original content every Monday, and then trying to do more short form content. I still need to keep pushing that. If you go to practiceinterviews.com, we have downloadable resources. You can join our free Slack community, just tons and tons of stuff there. I just want to highlight, I will not be going live next Tuesday. I'll be back the following Tuesday after Labor Day. What else? That's it. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. And if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. All right, right back to it. Thanks, yeah, it's so weird. And I get no eye contact a lot. Also, I'm contracting and I haven't expressed I want to be full-time. Should I let him know now or when I finish a good project? Okay. My teammate who is full-time is going on maternity leave soon, so there's some leverage for me. Yes, you definitely want to introduce the fact that you are interested in going full-time. I learned this lesson actually. I was in a contracting role in 2005, and it's like 3 months, and this was one of my favorite managers that I've had in my career, and she just said to me, like, "Jeff, do you wanna be here?" And I was like, "Well, of course I wanna be here." She's like, "Well, you haven't told me or the team that." I was like, "Oh my goodness." I thought, like, and everybody was liking my work and liking me, but I didn't explicitly say it. So it's such a fantastic question for anybody watching. If you ever get into a contract role, you always want to be strongly expressing your desire to go full time. In your case, it's not about completing a good project. I just want to get that alignment with the new manager first. Because if we're like, hey, how can we get alignment? And I want to go full time, like, right, the timing of that's not going to be great. So go in and try and figure out how you can best work with them. Then I would say over the next month or so, introduce that you are interested in a full-time role. And so that should just be part of your ongoing conversation. And by the way, a good leader would ask you that really early on, like, hey, so I see you're a contractor. Are you interested in going full-time? So they can ask that question too. But yeah, in this case, it sounds like with this hiring manager, you're gonna have to be proactive. So again, let's get that baseline of how to communicate best with them, how you can engage best with them, and then move on to that secondary step of telling them your interest. And again, of course, mentioning that interest to the teammates, having those conversations as well, because they can get in your corner and be supporters of you as well. Okay, everyone, we're out of questions. That's okay. We'll talk a little bit right now about I can't even get an interview. And then as questions come in, we'll let a few questions come in and then I'll answer them. So obviously the majority of my content is focused in on coaching you on questions, answers, how to answer interview questions. It's mostly about interviewing. Yeah, I do some job search stuff and obviously I do the negotiation stuff too, but the biggest challenge is even just getting in the door. And so I understand that that is a major, major challenge for many people in today's economy and landscape. And with a really, it's like there seems like there's a lot of jobs, but there's also a lot of competition for those jobs right now. So the number one piece is I want you to start looking at, and I'm just kind of brainstorming right now. I want you to start looking at what are the percentages? Are you applying to 100% of the jobs you're trying to get? Are you applying to 90%, 80%? And all I would say is work those percentages to not be so heavily skewed in one area or another. So if you find that you're doing like 95% applying, let's try and get that down to 90% or 85% over the next couple weeks, where you're just doing some more reach outs. Now, remember with the LinkedIn strategy, I know everybody's heard me say this a million times, but we find a role online. We just take a moment and we don't apply. And we say, can we find that hiring manager on LinkedIn? We try to find them. If we can find them on LinkedIn, we don't ask them for anything. We say, hey, Sue, came across your profile, amazing background. Here's an article that I think you'll find really interesting. Have a great day. And we just share something. If that hiring manager is engaged at all, they're going to look at your profile and they're going to see that you're a match and ask if you'd be interested in interviewing for their role. Is that going to happen a lot? No, it's not going to happen a lot. It's going to be hard to identify the hiring manager. It's going to be hard to hear back, but just these hiring managers being asked and being just sent a resume and saying, hey, like interview me for this job, it just doesn't work. The other piece, like how are we getting back to face a little bit? And this is just a constant poke. And this is something that I even like, I'm poking myself as I'm saying it out loud. I'm not doing enough of it, but like, are you going to enough in-person events, virtual job, sorry, not virtual, in-person job affairs, in-person networking events? And I always tell people one of the best ways to network, community service. Go volunteer at a community service event. You're gonna meet amazing people because those people have a foundation of gratitude and giving. And so you might meet people at volunteer events who can help you. Know that this is a win-win. You go to that volunteer event, you don't meet anybody, that's okay. You still gave back to your community, but if you happen to meet somebody and you were able to give back to your community, that's also a strategy that I just don't see being used that often. So a couple of approaches. It looks like a few questions have come in, so I'll flip over to questions and then we can get back to chatting about it. And remember, any and all questions are welcome. How long does it take to hear back from a fit call? I just did 2 fit calls yesterday. Oh, okay, cool. And then I'll just go to the second part of your question. Or should I reach out to the recruiter to thank them for setting up the Google Fit calls as well? You don't really need to. You don't really need to do that. I don't think that that's necessary. But what I do want you to realize is like it was just yesterday. They probably have a bunch of fit calls going on. If you want to share a little bit more, if you're comfortable, of course, the context, like the type of the role, like what stage you're at, what company, etc. That would be helpful. I think I can help a little bit more. But oh, you said Google. I'm sorry. And then fit calls are these like fit calls that are coming like early on, or these T-match calls. So you've completed the whole interview process and done well. Maybe you can tell me a little bit more. Data center technician position at Google. Okay. And then have you completed all the interviews and now it's the fit call, which is probably the likely for those types of roles. That's probably where you're at. You can check in, maybe as early as Friday or Monday of next week, but I would say you don't need to check in before then. Do you need to send thank yous? It's not really necessary. You can if you want. It's a good way to do a little poke, so it's not a terrible thing, but it's not necessary. Another question. If things don't work out with my manager, is it best to apply via referral as a contractor? I don't have the same benefits of applying internally versus a full-time employee. Yeah, you don't, but you have a major advantage over people who are external to the organization. If you start looking for roles outside of your team, that should be all about engaging with others and building relationships with other stakeholders. So yeah, you have an advantage. And so how do you do that? You do virtual lunches with people who you want to get to know a little bit better, maybe people you've worked on collaborative projects with. So yeah, you would want to ultimately end up applying through a referral, but you'll want to find out even before you do that if you're a good fit, maybe even speak to that hiring manager, speak to team members, and you have that advantage being there. So I want you to look at this as a real positive. Take advantage of the contractor situation. You just have an advantage over those that are not there. Hey Jeff, I had my leadership and problem solving a few days back. When can I hear back for next technical round? Recruiter hasn't reached out to me. Google. 5 business days. If you haven't heard back in 5 business days, that's a good time to reach back. So if it's a few days back, maybe late last week, again, give them those 5 business days and then reach out. Not uncommon to wait that long. Yeah, T-match after the on-sites. Yeah, for a data center tech, that's pretty common. Um, So there's a lot of people who kind of make it to this team match stage for DC techs, and that's okay. So again, it might take a few days to hear back, but if you want to check in by the end of the week, I think that's fine. You're welcome. Hey, Edward. If a role at Google lists a specific location, but I have a specialized skill set that matches and located in another city or country with an office, are they generally open to hiring for an alternative location? Um, so I have a criteria that I like to follow for this that not everybody likes, and that is I just say you get after it. They say, "Are you open to relocation?" You say, "I'm willing to consider anything." You get them to love you, and then when it gets to the end, you kind of say, "Hey, I'm not sure I can move. Like, there's an office here. Is that something you're open to?" Because otherwise, we're closing the door before we even get in. A lot of times, they're just going to say, "No, we don't do that." When they like you, it's easier for them to accommodate you. This is a big thing. What I'm saying, it's like, well, you got to prep for the interviews. You got to get ready. You got to do all that stuff just to find out at the end you're not going to move and they're not going to give you the job. Well, in today's tight economy, I just don't want anybody to shut down opportunities because the location's not right. We do live in a more flexible work environment than we ever have. And so taking on that strategy works, but asking up front could shut it down. Now, of course, you can say, hey, I'm open to relocation, but is this team or does this team tend to be flexible on location if I can't relocate? And then you can get that pulse early on as well. But just tread lightly, of course. Thank you, Jeff. Your videos helped a lot. Awesome. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help. Okay, so again, we're at the 43-minute mark, which is pretty lean for us not to have questions at this point. So let's just sit and pause in the moment, take our breath, see if any additional questions come in. I can't even get an interview. So let's go back to that for a moment. Another item I just want everybody to be thinking about is how are we going back and doing a couple of other creative strategies on LinkedIn that I've talked about before? I kind of go back to my Google search before I interviewed there, and there were two friends that I had, one from high school and one from college, that I didn't even realize were working there. And so I just kind of was like looking through my connections, doing a search. And so sometimes, especially at these big companies, what we don't realize is we actually know somebody there. We haven't checked up on it in a while. So it's just a really important step to double down on if you haven't doubled down on that step. Another LinkedIn strategy that I love is the unsolicited recommendation, right? So you make a recommendation of somebody you haven't spoken to in a while, but they're at a company that you might want to work at, and you just write something nice. LinkedIn recommendations should really be 3 to 4 sentences, 5 sentences tops. And you can even have ChatGPT write those for you. So another really, really good strategy, but make sure you're doing your due diligence. People move around quite a bit. So you should be checking and having a pulse on that at least once a month for your maybe top 2 or 3 companies. And then people just aren't writing enough LinkedIn recommendations for people. Do people really get to that part of the LinkedIn profile these days? Not really. But it's just something that you want to be thinking about and considering. It's really, really important. I hope that helps. Do you recommend negotiating on a data center tech offer as well? L1 or L2, or is it a fixed salary? If you're external, they don't hire external L1s and L2s. It should be an L3. And unless I haven't seen DC Tech be like new grad hires where you can't negotiate. Negotiate. I say negotiate everything. Now, remember, I say that, but we just want to obviously, if we're going after a small or medium sized business, we're just going to ask them, what's your negotiation philosophy? And they can say, we negotiate, we don't negotiate. They should be upfront about that. But at a big company like Google, worst thing that can happen is you can say, I want X money. And they say, oh, this is entry level role. It's locked in, no negotiation, but it should be negotiable. Yeah. I'm unable to crack technical interviews. Some questions pop up, which always kills my chances. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. The only thing that I can tell anybody on the technical side, coming from my limited, very non technical brain, is that you just have to continue to practice. And hearing this advice is probably just terrible, right? It doesn't sound great, but the more we practice, the more we'll get ready for that scenario when it comes up. So it's just whatever you're doing from a practice standpoint, can you increase it by 5%, 10%, 100%, 200%? Because the more we encounter these scenarios in anything we do, we're going to do better, right? So again, I use the basketball analogy quite a bit, but it's like I've made that pass a million times. So like the first 1,000 times I made that specific type of bounce pass, it probably wasn't as good as it is now. Or I've shot millions of free throws in my life. So like now when I shoot free throws, it's got a very nice rhythm and flow. I'm just used to shooting it. It's the same thing for interviewing, for technical questions. It's just like the more practice you put in, the more prepared you'll be for technical questions that you're just not ready for. And you'll come up with a system for answering questions when they're a little uncomfortable or we're not really ready for them. So continue to practice. That's my best piece of advice. And we can always do more. That's the biggest challenge with interview prep in particular, is that there is no end. There's always an opportunity to do more. Okay. Again, let's pause. I think I've covered most of what I wanted to cover for I can't even get an interview. I would just say the compound effect too. Like just a little bit every single day. Just keep at it. You're gonna beat those people who give up. And that's the thing. Like a lot of people give up. Don't give up. Just keep at it. And when it comes to trying to get an interview, just a little bit of work every day. You're just doing a little bit of work, a little bit more work. So that's just another recommendation. I like tracking everything. If I were in job search, I would track everything, but I know not everybody's going to do that, but I literally would track every contact, every application. I'd track everything. You're welcome. LinkedIn recommendations. I've started writing them around 5 sentences too. One strong lead sentence, 3 to 4 sentences, and a separate paragraph for context, and a final separate sentence with a call to action. Hire this person. It's great feedback, Edward. And I'm probably in the hands down the way I look at LinkedIn is very different from other people, but I will look to see if you've given more than you've received. Do I really do anything with that information? No, but maybe there's a few other people out there that think like I think. And if you've gotten 20 recommendations, I want to see that you've given 40. I don't like seeing somebody's profile who's been given 20 recommendations and then hasn't given back. It's telling. right? And again, you may just not know that people have that lens. Now I'm telling you. So if you have a bunch of recommendations, but you've never given any, give some. It's just such a nice thing. And we've all worked with unbelievable, amazing people throughout our careers. And so it's always nice to just say nice things. Hey, Andrew. Brad Pitt's question is similar to mine. Would you recommend applying for other roles that are not as technically crazy as a software engineer, like maybe a technical program manager or more focused non-technical role? This would also take some time. Yeah, Andrew, absolutely. It would take some time. Um, I love TPM roles. I'm very biased. I got to bring in my lens that I got to recruit for those roles for 3 years, and um, the reason why I like TPMs, there's a couple of reasons. One, it's got a nice technical component that's probably domain specific, so you're niching down. Program management as a overall field is really good, and then it's very AI resilient. You're still going to need a human to interact and coordinate with other humans, keep things on budget, on time, make sure that the technical components are set up appropriately. And I don't see that role being automated for a really long time. But yeah, it takes time to build up to that. So even if you want to get into program management, like even something as simplistic as taking a project management courses can be really helpful to just figure out that landscape and what it looks like. But I definitely love the TPM role. For Google, I got numbers from another person who just got hired for a similar position, but they have less qualifications than me. Can I use that negotiating tactic asking for more? Absolutely not. No. No, the way that it's going to work is the comp will be based on level, role, and location, and your ability to push. And then when they tell you no more, we'll move the numbers around. Then you know you've negotiated the best offer. But they don't. At comp is not. Comp doesn't use those components that people think they use. They don't take in interview performance and the person's background. Occasionally, when it's a very unique background, but 99% of cases, they're just looking at level, role, and location. And so you're just fighting for yourself. And people are like, well, how do I fight for myself? I don't have any competing offers. Who cares? With these big tech companies, I just throw a huge number at them. They say it's unreasonable. I say, great, see what you can do. They do it. And we get to that point where they won't give any more money. Like, nobody should ever. And for anybody who's watching, whether it's you personally, you have a friend, you know anybody, nobody should ever leave money on the table at a big tech company. You go big or you go home, right? Just go big, big, big. They tell you no more. You're gracious and you're kind throughout the process, and you'll get paid, and you'll get paid well. And this is why I can still do this business, right? Like, because I know the value of two things with all these big tech companies or tech in general. The value of the brand is priceless, and the comp you're going to receive is going to be great. And so I can conduct and do my entire business with a high moral standard because I know when people land at these companies, it's going to be a life changer. It was for me. And so I feel really good about coaching people. Would I go work for a big tech company now? No, absolutely not. I love working for myself. I will do anything and everything to never have a boss ever again. I enjoy working for myself. I'm incredibly, incredibly tough on myself. There's no boss that could ever be as tough on me as me. But I also like the freedom of, I like the freedom of being my own boss. So I wouldn't go work at any of these companies, but it's definitely something I recommend to build your skills, work with amazing people, etc. You are welcome. All right, everybody. Here's what I'm going to do. We're getting close to an hour. These sessions, they vary quite a bit. We almost always hit an hour, which is great. And I love that. That really means that the community showed up. They engaged if we can hit an hour, because I can't just talk at the screen for that long. Well, maybe a little bit, but not too long. I'm going to go into my wrap up. And then if any additional comments or questions come in during my wrap up, I will answer any of those last questions, and then I'm going to hop off. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. So last time, if you use the coupon code or promo code interviews, it's 20% off of our AI tool and or interview mastery course. We're really excited about what's going on with the AI tool. We just introduced modular feedback, and that means it's really going to break out your answers into smaller components so you can just see, okay, can't take this whole blurb, all this information. I just want to see how to improve my actions in a behavioral answer. The tool is set up that way. Also, 7-day free trial on the tool. So there's really no commitment there. You can answer as many questions as you want. It won't have all the bells and whistles, right? But it will have most of them. And then, of course, we're still getting great feedback on that interview mastery course. I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's LinkedIn, resume review, networking, etc. Live, 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. New original content every Monday, and I'm trying to do at least a couple of shorts a week. I really want to do more. I got to push myself there. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. And I'll just quickly note that I will not be going live next Tuesday, and I will be back the Tuesday after Labor Day. And we got a thank you from Sharon. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, so much for showing up. These sessions are super fun. I was looking, and I think statistically, I don't think I'm going to hit 200 lives this year, but it'll be pretty close to 200 live sessions. And it's crazy that it's been that many. So it's been such an awesome experience, and I'll continue to show up for you, the community. Thanks so much for being here today. Have a great day, and I'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks.